Basically, what flex raiding is a raid which scales dynamically with the amount of people you have in your raid. So, say you have 10 people in your raid team. It'll scale to the 10 people, basically like the boss health and the damage. You have 10 to 25 people who can participate in a flex raid. Depending on the amount of people, the raid will scale with the amount of people you have in your raid dynamically. So you can raid with 13 people just as fine as you'd be able to raid with 10. You can raid with 23 people or 20 as if you had 25 people. Like, the difficulty is supposed to be the same. I don't know how they'll be able to balance that out, because, like, how many healers will you need if you have, say, 17 people? If you have 17 people in a raid, and what would you need? Still only need 2 tanks. That doesn't really scale at all. You're always going to need 2 tanks. Yeah, 2 tanks. Healers is really the big problem here. If you have 17 people in a raid, how many healers would you need? Would it be 1 healer per 4 people? Like it is in 10-man, where you need at least 2 healers, sometimes 3. I know we run 3, and we do 2 on a couple fights. If it's supposed to be casual, then they'd probably scale it down so you'd only need like 1 per 4. So if you had 17 people in a raid, and for every 5, one of them is a healer, so you'd need 3.5 healers for 17 people? Or would they, like, buff that up? I don't know. Alright, so looks like there was a flex raid Q&A. There was also a thing with Ghost Crawler in the tweets. I don't really like the tweets. I love the Q&As a lot more. Let's see, originally posted by Blizzard Entertainment. Can I run a flex raid with 10 rogues and 0 healers and 0 tanks? Alright, here's the response. It doesn't change the mechanics of what raids are. It's a variable difficulty that scales in the number of people you have. You still need tanks, you still need healers, and you'll still need DPS. The fundamental archetypes of the game aren't changing. If your guild or group of friends isn't attempting raids now outside of LFR, you might have some roles you're not feeling, but you certainly could get to that point. Certainly expect people to be building pugs and such, but that's not really the intended target. The immediate intended target of Flex is to allow the more casual guilds that are already making smaller attempts at normal and probably hit a brick wall early on in TOT to more easily get weekly groups together to have fun and progress on the content that's more suited for their pace. They want to see the content, they want some challenging in the process, but aren't so hardcore as to be sitting people out, or demanding requirements of those playing. Jump in and play the game with friends, have fun, low stress. Alright, I like that. That's exactly... You see, I'm part of one of the biggest guilds on my server, but we have a pretty small... It's like an average size server. Our guild has over 600 players, there's always someone online, guild chat's active, and it was a lot more active back in Cataclysm when we had 3 full-time raid teams going, but now we only have 1 since one of our raid teams, I was in 2 of them. The one I was in at late, they kicked me out for completely legitimate reasons. I was kind of a douche. But the first one, I'm still in it, and we're doing pretty good. And the other one was more of a casual one, and they broke up this tier actually, and I think they're good back together with the new flex raid. But with the flex raid system, I think we could actually like have a guild raid like on the weekends. That'd be actually pretty cool. Like, hey, anyone in the guild, because I invite anyone who asks to come into the guild. I love inviting people into the guild because I am in charge of our guild's bank, and I make a lot of gold, so I don't actually need anything in the bank. But I do like to have people in the bank because we provide full repairs for our raid teams, and people who are leveling up earn gold for us, because you get like 15% of whatever they make through quests and stuff. So yeah, this would actually be a good way to actually do something for those players we have in our guild who just sit there and do nothing. So many. This is actually, I love this chain so much. Alright, next one. I hope it helps with receiving the pugging scene. I met a lot of my friends that way. Yeah, that's how I found my guild, is through pugging. Absolutely. Just the process of people putting groups together for things and having that need for some coordination in the content. You end up seeing the same people over and over, make friends, and that is no small part helps build long-term in-game relationships and feeds into healthy guilds. Yep, I agree with that. I met my guild. Actually, I was like in a leveling guild because it took me well over a year to level up my first character, my hunter, to 80 because I started playing back in Wrath. And I was just in this leveling guild, and I could not raid because that was back in high school. High school, I played every sport that I could. So I was in football, and then after football ended, I would go straight to track. Or, no, actually track had a little thing. I used to be in wrestling, but then I hurt my... Anyways, in high school I was too busy. So after high school ended, I finally was able to actually raid. And I joined a raid team where everything was super organized, but they had a whole bunch of people, and I was just like on the bench. So like, oh, you're allowed to pug this week. I pugged with this guild, and they're like, hey, you're a really good hunter, and we don't have any hunters, so if you come with us, because we have an open spot, you can have all the hunter gear. It's like, that's a good idea. So I went with them, won every piece of gear I could possibly get from ICC 10-man in like the first 2 weeks, and we started DEing the gear after that because I got everything. I got super lucky. And then one day our healer couldn't show up. I was like, hey, I have a priest I just leveled up and he's pretty geared. I can bring him in here. And they're like, hey, you're a really good healer. You should heal for us, because the other healer never came back. And that's how I got stuck playing my priest, which I play to this day. But yeah, anyway, I met my guild through that. And then after Wrath ended, the guild broke up, and half the people stopped playing. Then we merged into the guild I'm in now, and all the people from that old raid have stopped playing, but I still like the people I raid with. It's pretty cool. If it wasn't for them, I would have never merged into the guild I'm in now, and it's a huge guild, and I have so much fun. Cataclysm was so much fun, even though I hated the changes they made to hunters. Alright, next one. So, if a 10-man raid group that's casually doing normal modes decides to do a flex raid, it's just plain easier, no doubt there. But if they bring their 10-man and their 5 more healers, how does it scale? Just plain scaling boss HP? Wouldn't it mean those 5 of the healers are just kind of dead weight? Well, I'm pretty sure at least one of them has a DPS spec. Who the hell has that many extra healers lying around? If you're thinking strictly in terms of what is optimal for us to complete this content efficiently, then Flex Raid is probably not targeted at you. Balancing will come out during the PTR though. I don't think we'll get into much how it scales too much before then. It'll err on the side of the group and ensuring they can meaningfully progress in a reasonable amount of time. Next one, but only 25-man casual groups or 10-man groups with larger rosters, right? A small casual 10-man group that ends up missing people on a given night won't really be able to take advantage of the flex system to just raid anyway with their friends, which I think is a shame. I'd love to see a little more flexing, allowing for maybe 8 to 28 raiders or something, so that the 5-man groups can also take advantage of the new flex raids to not have a bench friends, and 10 groups can worry less about having their raid night canceled because of 1 or 2 missing. I like the idea of increasing it to like 28, but lowering it to 8, no. 10 is fine. Let's see, he says, raid mechanics start to break down when you go too much below 10 players. There are still assumptions of having 2 tanks and 2 healers, and some mechanics are not really able to scale with much fewer DPS. Raids are still going to be raids, and raids are designed with some givens to ensure mechanics can be interesting, complex, and challenging. But unlike normal and heroic, you can invite battle tag / real ID. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I love that. Real ID friends to a flex raid of current tier, and so if you're short, you can fill out with people you know instead of spamming chat to pick up randoms. The designers are discussing allowing you to at least enter the raid with 8+ people. The intent would be to allow a group to start clearing trash while they wait for a couple stragglers, as the difficulty with less than 10 would still be scaled for 10. It could allow for skilled, geared players to do it with less than 10, but some mechanics just may not be possible as they weren't designed for it. Yeah, like the intermission phase on Lei Shin. No, it's not Lei Shin. It's the last boss in normal mode. We have to spread out to the 4 quadrants. It seems like that'd be easier with more people. Can they leave and have the raid automatically adjust on the fly? How about adding people after it starts? Yes, and yes, it's dynamic. How is it going to scale for healers? If I'm taking 17 players, how will I know how many healers I need? You still want a standard rating DPS/healer ratio. It doesn't look at class or specs, it's purely scaling for numbers of players. It'll be up to the raid leader, and depending on gear and skill, it'll be different for every group of people, how much they can really deviate, and how those deviations affect their rate of progression. Again, it's going to be up to the PTR and seeing how testing progression to determine how balancing shakes out and what's possible. Yes, I would love to know that idea too. How would it scale for healers? As a healer, I can't really see other than it like checking how many healers you have in the group and lowering the damage based on that. But then you could just have one healer in the group and it would be super easy. As long as he was like a beast. No, you'd still have to have at least 2, one for the tanks. Anyways, we just made tech, which could made life of a 10-man a lot easier. Let's give it to the LFR folks. Oh, he's complaining about how this could make 25-man raiding groups a lot easier, but they're gonna target it towards the casual players. This isn't for the LFR folks, it's for normal folks. Ahem. You know what I mean. That we're going into LFR and weren't having an enjoyable raiding experience, or that just wanted an easy way to play with friends and family without spending too much time organizing it. These players would go to LFR only for gear, not for the experience, and that's really what we want to see happening. I'm hoping that players who are looking for more challenging content but have no time to get into the usual guild raiding scene schedules will start to switch from LFR to flexible raids. Highly skilled players with heavy time constraints have always felt left out of MMORPGs, but maybe there are ways we can deal with that. Ideally, skill should be equal or even better rewarded than time. But there needs to be a balance between the two. We can't provide 30 minutes of insanely difficult content with the best rewards that only 0.001% of the player base would be able to reach. But we also can't do the opposite and make rewards exclusively and directly proportional with time spent. Skill needs to enter into the equation and needs to have a pretty strong weight. LFR still has its own place. Some players are quite content with it. Some have no intentions of going any further than LFR in terms of raiding and are happy with the experience it provides. We're just trying to provide content for everyone to enjoy. This is just a preview. 4.5.4 isn't even on the PTR yet. Many things can still change. This is also part of the reason why we're sharing the information with you all. The feedback we get will help us better, blah blah blah. So, what they say is it's for for the casual players. Yes, there was something else in there No? I can't remember what I was going to say about that. Time constraints, yeah, it's awesome. With a new raid lockout, things will indeed change. Not for everyone, of course. If you want to stay ahead and on top of your game, you'd want to run both the 5.4 LFR and LFR Plus, since they most likely will wield upgrades, whether it be because you want to maximize for your normal... Oh, what he's saying is, if you're a hardcore raiding guild and you need to gear up your tune, what you would do is run LFR plus... Oh, yeah, plus flex raid. Yeah, I stopped doing LFR forever ago, because I don't really like it. It's too easy and boring. What I'm just saying is you need to run flex raid and LFR in order to maximize your gear for heroic raid progression. And they counter this by saying, yes, that is a good point, but we're going to release it a little bit later after it comes out, just like LFR. That way they can't run it to be the top first, which makes sense because usually those people who race for world first can't wait a week to gear up their tunes. They'll just be in there already and have heroic gear, and the upgrades will only be a little bit smaller, but they'll still run flex raid because of the small upgrade. They'll do anything for a tiny upgrade. Those guys are crazy. I don't. But if I cared about min-maxing, I definitely would. I think it's an amazing idea, but I would like to see the 8 to 25 or 5 to 25 possible. Plus, make the loot the same eye level as normal, and make Flexi and normal share the lockout. Or even replace the whole normal with 8 to 25 mode. If there are 11 to 12 one night, the guild has to decide to do the low eye level with all players, or do the high eye level with 1 to 2 are left out, and I'm almost positive they will choose the higher eye level. That would suck, because I only have my 290s right now. My hunter isn't really geared, and I would love to do this with my geared priest, but if it shared a lockout, I wouldn't be able to play with my friends. Yes, that would probably happen to some extent in some groups, but that will depend on how hard the content really turns out to be, and the eye level differences between those extra players and the rest. So yes, it's possible that some groups form with the intent to be as efficient as possible, so those will only include the best geared players in the smallest possible group. I don't think we should worry too much about that, to be honest. In the end, it's all up to whoever organizes the raid, and that should always be the case. I sincerely doubt that most groups will leave people behind just for a small difference in terms of item levels. Besides, eye level isn't everything. Some guilds decide on who to bring to the raids based on many different factors. Gear is only one of them. There's skill, there's personality, and there's knowledge. Meh. Then, let us assign loot to players whilst doing it, please. One of my initial thoughts about this was it would be a useful way to help undergeared, whether through bad luck, absence due to real life, or because they are trailists that need a little boost in eye level. Team members improve their gear. Then I read the new difficulty will be using the current LFR loot roll system. This would be a hindrance to such help. It would be useful if this decision were reconsidered so that raiding guilds could assign gear to members based on need for helping us progress through normals and heroics. There is nothing that cannot be reconsidered and iterated before the patch goes live. We'll share input about the loot system with the devs. I don't know, I don't mind the LFR loot system. Sorry, but I don't see the traditional loot distribution would work with flexible raid size. They add brackets to how many items drop based on the fixed amount of people, i.e. 2 with 10, 3 with 15, 4 with 20, 5 with 25. People would just pick enough people to reach that. It's a very good point. I assume that's probably the reason why this loot system was chosen in the first place. But, like I said, everything is still subject to change. Devs sometimes like to surprise us with unexpected solutions. That is true, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I guess the LFR loot system would be the best on that. Alright. Well, it was a lot longer than I thought it would take. Basically, Flex Raid is awesome, and I can't wait for it, because it would be a good way to probably get more people into the guild. We already have a ton. We'd probably get more people to play again. We'd probably get some of my friends to stop playing to play again just so they could raid like that. They actually made the raids a lot harder, and I don't have like a raid team. Basically, there's some people who don't want to play if they can't raid, but they don't want to raid with people they don't know. So Flex Raid would be awesome for that. And I can't wait to see what else, what their updates for it are.